More signs of the growing threat that online financial services are posing for traditional players in Canada. Yesterday at TD's annual shareholder meeting, Chief Executive Bharat Masrani called for greater regulatory oversight of the fledgling FinTech sector. Masrani warned, "I believe it would be appropriate for policymakers to consider a regulatory environment that ensures the safety of customer information and the integrity of our financial system." The need has become even more evident since security breaches, service interruptions, and solvency issues have plagued a number of fintechs. Consumers must have the same assurances regardless of who they deal with, he added. And in a surprising revelation, Scotiabank CEO Brian Porter disclosed his bank is spending $2 billion a year to beef up its technology. Porter said the money reflects the move to reallocate resources towards online services as the bank fends off the rising competition from the growing threat of fintech startups. Adam Nanjee is the head of financial technology at the Mars Discovery District. So, Adam, just to give people a sense of what we're talking about here, can you give us some examples of the most popular fintech, financial technology that's being used in Canada right now?
There are so many different types of technology within financial technology itself. Some popular ones are access to capital. What about digital banking? How do we access all of the things that are core to us? For example, digital wealth management. Do we still need a financial planner in today's day and age? A lot of that is becoming digital now. So I think it's around core competencies as they're related to folks' financial services and all of the new rapid fire technology around there.
Right.
For example, mobile payments, buying your coffee with your phone, investing with your portfolio, real time on your phone. So all of these financial services at your fingertips.
Right. And now this concern about, we need proper regulatory oversight, isn't that already there?
We have a very strong regulatory environment within financial services and financial technology. I think that's why our Canadian banking system weathered the storm. That being said, if you have an environment plagued full out with regulatory compliance, does that stifle innovation? And I think what happens then is there has to be a compromise. If we have too much regulation, how are we going to innovate? If we have no regulation, is that then just the wild, wild west?
Well, why can't you just innovate and follow the rules? Really? Does regulatory have to stifle everything?
It shouldn't be that hard, but what's happening is I think because of the threat or the perceived threat, more regulation does not equal less fintechs. And I think what we're seeing today, you're absolutely right. Regardless of regulation, they're going to innovate anyways. They're going to find ways around it that are not malicious. They're just going to find ways around it to innovate.
So how much of a threat then are all these different sorts of technology to people like the traditional banks?
We've seen over the past 18 months a significant rise in the amount of fintech startups and ventures that have come in just in Canada alone, several hundred. And it's expanding rapidly every month. And so the threat is absolutely real because we're seeing these companies that are actually raising capital, they have products in market, and they're actually having people using them. For example, there's a company called Wealth Simple that's a digital wealth management company.
Robo-advisor, common
exactly.
expression, yeah.
They have quite a few users in that millennial category that want a different way of investing their money, and they're taking their capital out of the potential, typical banking structure and putting it in another platform. So the threat is very real.
And what do you think the banks see when they're looking at this? Are they actually thinking, oh my goodness, we're going to just be hemorrhaging customers, hemorrhaging profits?
The banks have a significant customer base already, and I think there has to be a significant economic impact to them before they look at a real threat. That being said, if you look at the way banking is typically done today, for example, in the new millennial group, people under the age of 35 are not going into a branch, even if it's a colossal problem. And so I think the banks are recognizing that if they don't give their users their technology at their fingertips, they're going to be at a loss in the future.
Now, there must be, though, a lot of room for cooperation. It seems to me the banks would just buy up some of these. Like if they've got a fabulous technology that consumers are starting to embrace, that they would just say, okay, well, let's buy that.
And that's one of the things that Mars is actually bridging the gap. How do the banks work with the startups? Everyone talks about this concept of frenemies and threats and friend or foe. The actual reality from what we're seeing as Mars running Canada's largest fintech vertical is the banks want to work with the startups. The startups actually want to build solutions for the banks. And so we're looked at as where do those converge? And so that's sort of what's happening today.
And you're going to be speaking at a conference on Monday, apparently, where all of these players are going to be in the room together. What are you hoping is going to come out of that?
So what better way to really figure out what the banks are doing and what the startups are doing than having Canada's first FinTech summit. So that's happening April 4th on Mars. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick...
On Mars. We know what you
Not
mean.
our planet, at Mars.
Yes.
And we're going to pick the top 10 or 15 startups across the country and bring them in with executives and innovation with the banks and underpin that with all of the venture capital firms in the country.
It's the dating game.
Well, if you think about it, how does a CEO of a startup meet the head of innovation at a bank? That takes a bit of time and a lot of pounding the pavement. We're here to bridge that gap.
All right. Well, thanks so much for telling us about it.
Thank you.